This is my Icom IC-R70 receiver. I've owned it for a number of years. It's one of my favourite radios. It feels like it's built like a tank, and it's got quite a few knobs and buttons on the front. It's very simple to use. It's a little bit quirky in some ways, but it works extremely well. So let's just have a quick look at the main controls on the front panel of the receiver. We've got a power on off button here, as you'd expect. We've got mode buttons here for CW, RTTY or data modes, single sideband AM and FM. This receiver has a narrow FM filter fitted, so you can listen to 27 meg CB or 10 meters FM quite easily using that function. We've got a function button down here, and by pressing that we can change the sideband, because this radio will default on 14 megahertz and above. It will default to upper sideband, and below 14 megs it defaults to lower sideband, but we can switch sidebands by pressing the function and then pressing the SSB key. So we have got the facility to do that. We've got a built-in preamplifier, so we've got 3 positions on this switch with a preamp in, the preamp off, and attenuator in. And we've got controls here for the 2 VFOs that the radio has, A and B. It doesn't have any memories, it just has 2 VFOs. And as you'll see when I show you the receiver in the shack, when you switch the radio on, it defaults to 15 megahertz actually if it's in general coverage receive mode. Each time it switches on, it doesn't remember the last frequency you were tuned to or the last band or anything like that. We have here then a dimmer control to alter the intensity of the display and the backlight of the S meter. You can switch the receiver between ham bands only or general coverage. So if you have the ham band setting in, it'll just go up and down through the amateur radio bands, and it will ignore the broadcast bands and other bands. We move up and down the bands with these 2 buttons, and then we have the various steps we can tune in. So 1 kilohertz, 100 hertz or 10 hertz, and we can actually lock the dial by pressing that one. And of course, we've got the main tuning knob, got our frequency display here, and a nice big clear well backlit S meter, traditional analog S meter. And just down here to the right we've got the RIT, receiver incremental tuning, RIT control here. We've also got a notch filter which we can switch in and out using that button, and we've got a passband tuning control on the inner ring of this knob, and the outer ring is the adjustment for the notch filter. So we just turn the radio around. You can see we've actually got 4 feet on the side here if we wanted to stand it on its end vertically. Rear panel's pretty simple. Okay, we've got a switch to switch between antenna 1 and antenna 2. Antenna 2 being the SO239 socket, and antenna 1 is just a push connector for a piece of wire. There's a port here for attaching a converter. There's a port here for attaching a scope, I assume an oscilloscope of some sort. I'm not sure what that would show. Maybe that's a 10 meg output or something, I don't know. We've got a connector for the 240 volt supply, main supply coming in here. This is doesn't need a separate power supply. Power supply is built into this radio, so it plugs into the mains. We've got an external speaker socket here, 3.5mm socket. We've got a phono jack labelled mute, and I think you'd use this in conjunction with a transceiver. You could use this as a separate receiver, and that would mute the receiver when you keyed up. And there's an accessory port here which I've never used, and I'll have to look up in the manual what the outputs are on that. But I would say, looking at it, although it's a multi-way connector, there's only 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. About 17 of these pins are actually sort of connected to anything, looking at the little metal inserts here. So, a fairly straightforward receiver. Let's see how it performs in the shack. Okay, let's turn the receiver on. Turn the AF gain down a little bit in a minute. As you can see, we've defaulted, as I say, we've defaulted to 15 megahertz. Now, we might want to go up to a different band. We're on USB. Switch to AM. Tune around. Let's turn the volume up slightly. So we've got a station there. Okay, we listen to that, but if we turn the radio off, leave it for a minute, turn it back on, you can see we're back on 15 megahertz. That's one of the quirks of this receiver. As I said, you've got this button that switches between ham and general coverage. If we switch it into ham bands, we will now only be able to step around the ham bands. So we've got 160 meters, 80 meters, 40, 30, 20, 17, 15, 12 and 10, and then that's the upper end of 10, the FM section, then we're back to top band. So that's the ham band setting. If we put it in general coverage, you can see we've got a well backlit S meter. That's on the dim setting, that's the bright setting, which the camera has difficulty focusing with. And all our other functions are as I described them when we looked at the radio initially. One thing I did forget is we've got just over here, and I'll just zoom in slightly. And we've got an adjustable AGC here. We can have slow, fast or off on the AGC. We've got an LED to show that the receiver's actually receiving something. There's a signal there. In other words, it's not squelched out, as they say. But there's the squelch control here. And you see the LED goes out when we turn the squelch up. Squelch operates in all modes. And we've got a combined squelch and tone control on this knob. And here we've just got the volume, the AF gain, and the RF gain. So it's a very simple receiver in many ways to operate. It only has one bandwidth for AM, but it seems to work very well. It doesn't have any memories. It's very limited compared to a lot of today's computer control stuff, but it's an absolute joy to use. There's nice audio quality from you can see you've got a front facing speaker here, which, although it's not a massive speaker, it does produce some nice audio quality. So if you see one of these on the market and it's not too expensive, I could definitely recommend these. They're a really solid, well-made machine. There you go, the Icom R70. Thank you for watching.